much.
Thank you.
And thanks for having us, right? I'm Alex. I'm based in Germany. This is my second copper back. I appreciate the notion about Germans earlier. We're 3 minutes behind schedule. So, so my background is geology, actually. So I like Thomas yesterday saying about 1, 2, 3, right? We geologists think the same way. It's 1, 2, 3, many. That's how we count. So 7 and 5 earlier today confused me. And then we had 3 key takeaways, which was fine as well. So what Ian and I did over the last 6 years, actually, we take you on a journey along what we experienced and how we suffered in our company to really bring modeling and value selling to the level where we are. What changed for myself since the last copper bag, I now have a full-time job as business value champion. And Ian and I work together since 15 years, so we will rudely interrupt each other during the conversation. And what he has now, his title is Digital Pricing Strategy Lead. That's also something which didn't exist. So as I said, we take you along the journey. Keep in mind all the time I'm a geologist. 60 million, 61 million, no difference to me, right? And when it comes to pricing. And also, Jelena asked earlier, was it top down or bottom up, right? For us, it was sometimes straight to the middle. We would have wished some bottom up support. We would have wished some top down support. But it was usually navigating along what has been discussed yesterday as well. Initiating sales, right? Getting the sales team motivated, change management. You will hear all of it in the next 20 minutes.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Lisa, for having us here. Really appreciate it. So Ian Ambler, I've been 27 years now in the company. So Alex and I have worked together for a very long time. Oh, well. But what we'd like to sort of show you today is our sort of thoughts around value pricing, because it's really, everybody talks about value pricing. Everybody talks about outcome-based. It's really quite hard to do because you've got to understand what value really is. So to give you a little bit of a flavor of the oil and gas industry, or the energy industry as we all sort of rebranded to these days, it's not something that happens overnight. You don't stick a hole in the ground and all of a sudden oil comes out or gas comes out or the hydrocarbons. It takes time. So there's a lot of time around the modeling of the asset, so that you acquire the asset and then you start to model the asset, understand the asset using SLB technology. There's the engineering side of things where you're then into the process of actually putting that hole in the ground, sort of drilling for the oil and gas, getting the hydrocarbons out of the ground. And then, of course, there's the final stage, the production. So you see the green bars that are on there as well. What those are the spend. So as you can see, when you get to the production side of things, we're talking, I think it's around 900 and something...
926
billion dollars.
I made it up, it's 920 something.
Germans and numbers and geologists. So it's a long process. There's a lot of effort. There's a lot of time. There's a lot of stages that go in there. So the importance of getting our pricing right across that whole sort of value stage, each of the value stages is really, really important. But also it's how do you then price it correctly for that long-term view around the value. So there's what we sort of discovered or sort of just called or explored was the value cycle. So selling is always, the one thing that you have to do. You have to go and sell to the customer. You have to tell them what the value is, understand the value, and be able to sell that value, along with the customer success, because value is only good as long as we recognize that value at the end of the day and you get success from it. So understanding what the customer wants and what the customer value is, and then what the success looks like to the customer, really important. Having the right engineering teams in the right place, building the right tools, building the right capabilities that enable that value, really important, because without those, you can never realize that value, that success with the customer. Then, of course, the pricing. Once you understand the customer's value, where they see the value and what they want, what they're willing to pay, then you can start to price that properly. And then what we are trying to do, and Alex will sort of talk us through that shortly, is actually be able to model that value ahead of going and selling to the customer, so that when you walk in front of the customer, you stand in front of the customer, you've been through a lot of modeling, a lot of iterations around what that price should be and why it should be where it is, linked to the customer value. So Alex and I have been on a journey. When we first started talking about, how do we explore the value of something, there was a thing called the Open Subsurface Data Universe, which Alex will talk you through in a second. And it was a new standard, a new platform for the oil and gas industry, for the energy industry, where all the data silos and all the data is starting to become available to everybody, which is great. But how do you sell that? So all our account managers were going out there and saying, hey, OSDU, you need an OSDU. And the customer's going, but why? What does it do? And our account managers were standing there going, well, they were really struggling to sort of articulate the value clearly to the position where they could then make a sale. And instead they were starting to discount it in order to try and make those sales. So Alex and I kind of sat there and went, how do we help the account managers have a better conversation? Not to sell, to have a better conversation to enable the account managers to then sell the value rather than start to discount a tool or a product. So taking it away from being a tool or a product, what's the value of the thing that the customers get, and where they're going to get some business case from that. So we did a bunch of work, lots of benchmarking, lots of studies, talking to customers, interviews, experts from our industry and from across the industry, different papers, and that helped us build our value calculations. I'll hand this over to Alex now to kind of walk you through a little bit of that.
Yeah, just going to walk you through a couple of use cases we worked on in the past years and how we populated everything towards 2026. So Ian mentioned it, OSDU. It's an industry consortium which was initially founded by Shell. The idea is that operators spend time and money to have the same common data platform, which doesn't mean they share data, but they have the same standards. It guarantees interoperability, as well as they work with cloud service providers like AWS, Microsoft, and Google, and running in a system which is unified across the industry, which makes it also easier to sell assets, right, at the end of the day, if you speak the same language. We had the conversation about language here as well in our group on table B earlier. And that was built as an industry standard, and each of the vendors who contributes to it is able to differentiate on top and sell the core as well as the differentiation services on top of these to clients alike. And as Ian said as well, it was a very hard sell. The concept is new to the industry. Operators joining thought everybody else sees their well data, which is a no-go, right? We're talking here about clients who really protect their wells. They're worth billions, right? A well log in a productive area. We're talking also with clients who spend 145 million on a well without blinking, with a 30% chance of success. And when we try to sell them a database for 4 million, they negotiate us down, right? Or try to. So it's a bit of a diverse system here. And what this industry consortium guarantees is updates. It's now running since 2017. You have new releases every 2 months. So as a vendor, you have to guarantee maintenance and updates. We also change from on-prem to subscription to consumption models, which complicates everything as well. So I'm just going to walk you through one exercise where we've been both involved at the beginning. You see the sale life cycle, which was a long one. It was around OSDU-ish, right? And the client asked us to deploy an in-country cloud to address data residency in their country. Ian was more involved than I. We worked before with cloud service provider, a regional cloud service provider in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. And we understood that this is a lengthy process. And what you see here, that's the buyer motivation and our opportunity ranking, right, at the bottom here. And everybody started here on an emotional high. The client got the mandate from their government to build this up. We started with technical deep dives. We had an MOU. And then it turned out in one of the meetings, the Madam CIO said, she then started to realize this is not done in a heartbeat. This takes years to build up. We assumed 2.5 years. And then she said, we pray it can be done in 6 months. And then all of a sudden my teams explode. Did they pray or pay? Right, which is a bit of a difference. But it was, then we went into these technical deep dives, and then it really slowed a bit down because everybody realized that is not done easily. And when we went from partnership selling to consultative selling, if you want, We had a lot of technical deep dives. We looked at the landscape rationalization, the technical capabilities. We had data management workshops, innovation factory, which is we work with the client, use mainly AI to innovate workflows. We had technical presentations, and that took a year, right? That was a year where I was meeting with the client on a weekly basis, sometimes 3 or 4 times. And I'm a German, it's well documented how often. So, and then we proposed something which was a big pack, right? A big pack of stuff we could do. It was a bit unsorted. And the motivation dropped. We had to break down in communication because it was too much to consume for the client, this 1.5 years of work. And we changed the approach. Within these 1.5 years, we found a champion and we generated value business use cases. We looked at what does the project bring the individual, who is involved, and what is the dollarized value of this. And this was unique in the industry. That was 5 years ago. And what we worked out, as you see here, these are 5 of 25 projects which we had. And you see the top line is data discovery. That's used by data managers, domain leads, and data users alike. They use it 30 to 50% for each study they're doing, and that the efficiency gain we guaranteed is 50%. That's a value of $500,000. So that's something which resonated with the client, right? And it was a project we were sure we can easily deliver. After 1.5 years of discussion, you don't want to ruin the reputation even further, so you propose something where you can quickly deliver. Then we had other things which address the data managers only, which somebody mentioned earlier. It's not very sexy, right? It has to be done. The data has to be cleaned up. But in the view of the company itself, it's not very attractive. And the business value created is rather low, right? So we could risk and rank the project and we could deliver quite quickly. And we're going now into phase 2 of the engagement here, which is beyond the initial projects. So that was the first time we used the value-based selling, at least, or modeling, to drive sales. I also worked with Wintershall, German company. I told them from the records we kept since then, so we now have a list of roughly 100 workflows. We know how often they are done, by whom, and what is the efficiency we can bring. And based on that repository, we can quickly filter out different projects, which we then need for client engagements, to give the account manager a feeling really what is the value of our solution we're bringing into the game. And here I set in that case a number. The client went back, we worked on the concepts, how they work it out, and you see here they wanted to reduce from 10 databases to 1. They reduced the application landscape. We talked about total cost of ownership when it came to the hardware. And they came back with a value the client estimated, and they presented it at a conference, of 1.4 million. So again, I'm a geologist. I was 5% off, which is fine, right? Which is absolutely 100% for me. I did the same for our full OSDU solution. I told my boss, who is British, I think the value we can create for a client is 67 million. And he said, yeah, my German friend, wishful thinking, nice number, thank you. 3 weeks later, AWS published a report. We think OSDU solution brings a value of 69 million, right? Keep in mind, geologists, that's Upper Cretaceous. The important thing is that at the end of the Cretaceous, the dinosaurs did go extinct, right? That's what matters. It doesn't matter if it's 67, 69. We were at least in the same ballpark here. And that's when it went really ballistic over the last couple of months. And so we had here internal presentations, more internal presentations. We were talking to our expert community. We appeared on stage in other conferences, right? We had partnerships with a cloud service provider. I now work, we had 2 client engagements, which I used as a benchmark. And then since end of mid-2025, we're now at 20 client engagements. And we have the support from the management, right? We had to go through a whole chain of top down, right? Mainly through the middle, and get everybody on board to join us on our journey, which really started as a hobby. What we have now is a large variety of business value calculations. You might know leverage point. Here we're using MediaFly, which is in our system, so it's connected to our systems. We can play with the data, get an understanding of the business value. And we now have models which cross the whole chain, which Ian presented at the beginning. We have it for subsurface, drilling, production, and sustainability. At the moment, I'm working on roughly 40 different projects with individual use cases. And along the way, we used AI for various reasons. We used it to update models or try to update models with AI. We used it to get competitor information, which is inbuilt in some of the models we're having. We used it to populate tenders, right? So there was a huge variety of processes where we used AI. We can discuss them offline because we're running out of time. And this should click on somehow. And here we go. What we have now, where we use now AI consequently, is building our own business value calculators. Right? This is a prototype from last week, and you see here the variety of parameters we have. We can play with the parameters, and with AI, we need 2 or 4 hours to set up such a model, right? In the past, it was weeks. If I go through Leverage Point or others, not trying to discredit anybody, it takes weeks to build a model. So we're much quicker in these, and they're tailored for a specific need. And what we're deciding next week is, do we have a modular business value calculator across the whole chain, so you can click on and off? Or is it worthwhile to have business value calculators for each individual use case we're addressing? And with that, and of course, the highlight of our 6-year journey is today, the manufacturing pricing excellence, where we're presenting. And we also have now, as I said, Ian has this role we're now reporting into sales and commercial. And we finally have the ear of the top and the bottom to work with them to really improve and go even quicker. And what that means for pricing, that's what Ian going to explain you.
But just before I do that, one of the things that, just to add to what Alex was saying, well, I said at the beginning, one of the things that we were really keen on doing is making sure that we started the conversation or allowed the account managers to start the conversation around value. What Alex has been able to do with the value calculators that he's been building, and the first iteration was this massive spreadsheet, millions of tabs with data all over the place. With being able to take that data into a sort of a 2-hour slot and be able to build a calculator that you saw just now, you can walk into a customer, instead of showing a massive spreadsheet, you can interactively work with them and say, what if, what if, what if? And we don't have to be accurate at that first conversation. What we find is once the customer starts to sort of interact with us and say, actually that's wrong, that's brilliant for us, because that's data coming back to us so that we can refine and tune these calculators with real data from the customer. And guess what? When they're giving you real data, they trust it. So instead of telling us, hey guys, you know, you're wrong, you're just trying to sell us stuff, they suddenly trust it. And that's where the conversation really starts to ignite and really starts to move forward. As Alex said, I'll bring it back to pricing. So an example that I'll kind of use on this here is, you know, as you go through some of the value pricing that we've been doing and thinking about how do we make sure that we're understanding the customer's value, how we, you know, getting to the real core of what the customer wants to measure and understand. We've got to challenge our own assumptions. We've got to be bold in a lot of the dialogues, you know, some of the questions that we're asking, some of the interview questions that Alex does when he goes and does his value interviews are really sort of kind of pushing the customer. We need to also listen. And again, you know, we're pushing this down to the account managers. Really listen with, you know, true intent. Listen to what the customer's saying, and be prepared to, you know, price the customer's perceived value, not your own value. So if the customer sees that value, that's great value. One of the examples I've got is I was sitting with one of our exec levels in a meeting, talking about a customer that we were working with, that we'd shown them the solution. And the team that was, you know, pushing the solution said, "This is the number." And the exec at the time said, "It's too high. You know, the solution isn't mature enough. You know, we've sold it elsewhere. We've never been able to get that price. So, you know, this is an exec sort of telling us that the price that we put on it is wrong." And he came back, and you know, it was very sort of negative business impact that was kind of having. So we came back to him and we said, well, actually, we've spoken to the customer. The customer really likes the solution. The customer's tried the solution. The customer, you know, the data that we were able to bring back and show him that actually they are willing to pay. It was a much more positive conversation that we were having with the customer, but also with our exec level, who were then starting to think, well, hold on. If one customer sees the value in this, maybe we've been selling it wrong elsewhere. and maybe we should have better conversations elsewhere. And the impact of that one example was this difference. We were going to put it on the table for $500,000. We ended up being able to sell it for $2 million because the customer saw the value. Business value is measurable. And as the quote at the top there says, which I think is very good, don't worry about the precision of the data. Better to be generally correct than precisely wrong. We're trying to start a conversation about the value. We're trying to get the customer to tell us what value looks like to them. Things are becoming more, increasingly more complex. Customer workflows, customer business, the market's changing. So we have to adapt to that as well. So if we can use tools to do that, great. But what we have to make sure is it's personal to the customer. So what is value to me? And I was sitting with a customer last week, and I was showing them, value in the way that we've shown it to other customers. And he kind of had this blank look on his face. And I said, but what we want to do is measure it in the way you want to see it. How do you take that up to your management? What is value to you? And he told me what it was. And I went, well, of course nothing I said made any sense to you, because he had a totally different value structure than what we were trying to push. But having had that conversation and asked the question, Alex and I now have a meeting, I think in a couple of weeks, sitting in his office, whiteboarding it, because now we understand the value he's after. So don't be afraid to ask the questions. Make sure you're measuring it in the units of measurement that your customer wants to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a question?
We were 1 minute behind schedule.
That's right.
So we catched up too.
Yeah, we will make up for it. I have wiggle room in my agenda. Don't worry. No questions on this. First of all, it seems like you have a lot of fun when you're doing this, by the way. So I want to join your team. Seems like they have a lot of fun at work. Josef in the front, of course.
Thank you for sharing your journey. It's very impressive. What is the most difficult step on your journey where you were struggling to find your way to develop this?
Yeah, I think it's with every project you're convinced of, and same as with the client engagement, then you get the first negative feedback. Or what was even worse, I interviewed 50 people, right, to get these 100 workflows, and everybody said, great effort, good luck, right? So that's not very motivational at the end of the day. So I think keeping up the motivation through that long journey was key. And then along the way, always getting a bit of positive feedback did help, and then finally getting the buy-in from the management. Yeah. But it was...
Support that sort of buy-in from the management. It was something that we had to go and kind of really push for constantly, because it's really hard to do value-based pricing. And, when you sort of show what we want to do and how we want to do it, you have to go up and down the organization in order to build that. And that was tough. Sorry, Alex.
No, it's the buy-in from others, and really have then the conversation, why does it help? And even with the references we had, it was still a hard sell internally to the sales population. But now I'm teaching every 4 weeks at the Sales Academy, which is our account manager training. So that's a big boost now as well.
And we had another question here.
So what I really loved about your presentation is that you connected the value selling story to building up customer intimacy and understanding what really matters to the customer. And I think that is really a showcase of how it should be done. But you mentioned that you're going to the Sales Academy and sharing your experience. But in principle, I would say this requires a completely different skill set on your sales teams. So apart from sharing your success story, what else did you do in order to bring that kind of mindset change into your organization, into the sales organization specifically? And did you have additional tools that you used in order to enable it, or is it just more word of mouth?
It is, what has to be clear to the account manager, there's not a one-fits-all approach here, right? It has to be a specific client. And it needs to be the right account management we're having. It has to be a partnership relation, because the example Ian just mentioned, right? If you're sitting in front of a client with the wrong PowerPoint slide, with the wrong pitch, and you're not getting thrown out, is something you don't have with many clients. So it has to be the right mindset on the counter side as well. And from the account manager same thing, right? He has to have the right approach because it's not happening overnight. It takes some effort to identify the key people. So it's what is clear to everybody, it works for some. It doesn't work for everybody. Where it worked for a lot is we use it for unsolicited proposals. Right? We look at the value we can create for a client, and we introduced a new product and did write to 50 clients and said, we think the value of this new solution based on the size of your organization, based on your operations is X, Y, Z. And we had that in a nice graph. And 35 replied out of this 50, and we closed 5 or 6 before the usual sales cycle time. So that's proof for other account managers. Maybe it works for my client as well. So it's really a try and error at some point.
But what I would add as well is that it's still a work in progress. This isn't finished. This isn't done. Our sales organization is growing. It's changing. We've got a brand new sales director, and she's amazing. She's brilliant, and looking to change some of the systems in the back end to enable us and the account managers and the sales force to change and adapt as well. So there's a lot still going on.
And it was mentioned earlier, we have also this factory from the core, right? From the well delivery system. They have a factory of people writing proposals. So each person has, I think it's 90 hours to write a proposal. And if we save these people with some of the methods we have, I mentioned the search for competitor information, which we can automate and other things. And proposal writing itself can be automated to some extent. So if we save these people 10 hours, I mean, it's a huge value for us as a company using the same technology we developed for our clients.
Perfect. Thank you. Give them a hand, and thank you for joining our stage.